Okay. So another thing we want to talk about in this episode is our top five favorite slash best games of the 2021 season. I don't know
Oh yeah.
how did you approach this? Was it more favorite or best? What did you think, or kind of how did you approach it?
Some of both. So
Okay.
games that I enjoyed watching, but that they had to be competitive, right? Or else you're not really going to be into it. We stuck with regular season only. So like I didn't have like any of the playoff games or
Okay.
conference championship games factored in. I don't know if you did or not. Um, for me, number one was A&M versus Alabama. Just strictly because like the night game on CBS, we thought that CBS had taken a huge L by making that their only night game of the year, and it turns out like they hit a home run with it. They really did,
Right.
and part of it. Like yeah, it is really fun when like Alabama loses, like you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
the whole nation enjoys when Alabama loses.
Sure.
That's just a fact. But to see like it was just a really good game. It was just an extremely competitive game. It was back and forth. Calzada down the stretch, making just huge throws. So yeah, like that's number one for me, and I think because just of the entertainment value, like you had to watch because you knew there are national ramifications there.
Yeah. That actually just missed my list. I did not go only regular season.
Oh,
Um,
did you not? Oh,
and I had two other games involving Alabama.
okay.
So
The Georgia games, yeah.
So it was actually not both of them. It was just one of them. Anyway,
Okay.
I kind of went just purely on instead of personal enjoyment because I could have gone five Notre Dame games or Ohio State losing or whatever.
Okay.
I tried to go like a mixture of like best games slash most entertaining games that were just a lot of fun to watch like
Uh-huh.
that. And I wanted stakes. So I only had games where there was at least one team ranked. Um, which I would
Okay.
assume that's probably what we ended up with anyway. But like,
Yeah. Right.
I mean, yeah, you can argue that this I'm making something up now. This Toledo Miami Ohio game that went to three overtimes and finished 52-49. Okay, that probably has never happened in the MAC. But like, I'm
Right.
using that as like no one cares. Okay, like yeah, that's fun to watch, but that's not actually one of the best games because there's no stakes there,
Sure.
not on a national scale. So most of these actually had some level of stakes, if that makes sense. Um, okay, yeah, you gave one of your games. I'm gonna just go through mine chronologically.
Okay.
My first game was from week one, and here I talk about not personal, but I went Notre Dame 41, Florida State 38, an overtime game, and
Yeah.
I think that's like people just really enjoyed that game. It was Notre Dame was actually, I'm trying to remember exactly what the game script was. Notre Dame, I believe, was up pretty big, and then Mackenzie Milton comes off the bench and leads a big comeback for Florida State, and the place is like Doak Campbell's going absolutely bananas. This is week one, so like college football is back.
Yeah.
Went
Crowds were back. Yeah.
yes, went to overtime. Notre Dame kicked a field goal to win it, but just a very fun, like entertaining game in my opinion.
So for me, my second one, this was number two for me, is Michigan at Ohio State, or sorry, home to Ohio State last regular season week of the year. It was a playoff game. Like it was
Yeah,
a playoff game. It like and it delivered. Like it was really entertaining in the snow. Like you had kind of like the snow, kind of
yeah,
like the novelty of all of that. Um, and yeah, Hassan Haskins ran for five touchdowns. Like it was just really fun. I think the players that needed to be big in that game were to make it just really entertaining. Like yeah, Aiden Hutchinson and Ojabo like were all after CJ Stroud. It was just really fascinating to watch. It was a game that another one where you kind of like understood that like how much it meant for both teams, and to see Michigan get over the hump and like to beat them there, like that meant so much to them. And yeah, like just yeah, the crowd like rushes the field and everything. It was really neat. That's number two for me.
yeah. That was a great game as well. Another game that just narrowly missed my list. And like, there were so many games I wanted to put on my top five, and I just couldn't. Like, I don't know, man. I had to narrow this down from like 20 games that I originally
What
wrote
did you
down.
have on your top five?
Let's keep going. My next game is Oklahoma 55, Texas 48.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't end up with quite as high stakes as we thought, but just this was a fun game. Like this was one of those games where, like, I don't usually care that much who wins this game, but it usually delivers just as far. Like I want to watch this game every year, and it absolutely delivered this year. Texas went up big. Oklahoma with the comeback under Caleb Williams. Was this the game where they sat Spencer Rattler?
Yes, middle of the game. Yep.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
The comeback led by Caleb Williams. Just a fantastic game.
That's my number 3 game
Okay.
for me. It was Oklahoma at Texas. For all the reasons that you said. It kind of maybe lost some of its luster later on. We thought Texas was going to be really good, and like we thought Oklahoma was a playoff team, So
Sure.
like I actually had Oklahoma in the preseason winning the national title. Like they were my title pick. So like we were really big on them, and then it turned out to maybe not be quite as full of just juice as what we thought, but still it was a phenomenal game. Like the game itself was crazy good. So I think the story of this the story was Caleb Williams coming on and Spencer Rattler not really playing since. So
Yeah. Okay, my next game was the same weekend actually. Ole Miss 52, Arkansas 51. This one was awesome. Like just two offenses that were absolutely dialed in, going up and down the field. This game ended with Arkansas scoring on the last play of the game and then going for 2 for the win and not being able to convert, and which I enjoyed. Like I was rooting for Arkansas just because I don't know. I grew up. I lived a couple years in Arkansas as a kid, and I've always kind of liked them as my favorite SEC team. But I was just purely enjoying the game. Like it was just a thrilling game.
That's number 4 for me as well. Like it was 52-51, and they won on a missed 2-point. Like just like is Kiffin versus Kendall Briles, like as offensive minds. Just like I loved every bit of it. It was creative. It was everything that the SEC accused the Big 12 of being just a couple of years ago. And like I like here's the thing. I think the defenses for both of these teams are actually pretty good. Like I actually really think that. Like Arkansas has a decent defense. Ole Miss's was maybe a little opportunistic, I guess you could say. They weren't great, but they weren't bad. Like they weren't 52 points scored on you bad.
Right.
Like so I think it just speaks to like how special that game was and just the track meet that it was. They combined for 103 points and 1,287 yards. 3 100-yard rushers in that game. So it was so much fun. That game, by the way, Ole Miss in Arkansas was being played at the exact same time as Oklahoma, Texas.
Yes.
It was the noon window on October 9th. And by the way, later that night was when A&M played Alabama. So like that day was just incredible. Like
That's
but
awesome.
the only bad part is you had to flip between Oklahoma, Texas and Ole Miss, Arkansas. Like they were both coming down at the exact same time, and it was the clock was late in the fourth quarter, and you couldn't. It was really hard to like focus all your attention on just one because it was like so much happening.
I definitely had my second TV up that day, and those were I couldn't hardly take either TV off of those two games. It was just like you had to watch those two. Thrilling. Anyway, so my fourth game, again going chronologically, I went rivalry week. You went with Michigan, Ohio State. I almost went with that, but I chose one that was down to the wire, and that was the Iron Bowl. Alabama 24, Auburn 22, an overtime game. And there were stakes in this game, especially as a Notre Dame fan, because we needed Alabama to lose this game. And so did Oklahoma State and Cincinnati and a lot of other schools like were rooting against Alabama. This had real, this mattered. And it apparently mattered on the Auburn side too, because like we almost saw their coach get fired this offseason after 1 year. But
it's so much different if he wins that game too, by the way. Like the whole narrative is so different if Tank Bigsby just goes down in bounds.
If he goes down in bounds, I was just going to bring it up. Tank Bigsby, you could just see it happening as it was happening. Yeah. He decides to go out of bounds, and everyone was like, oh crap. You could just see the way this could go wrong. Auburn basically dominated the line of scrimmage in this game, which is what made me think that Alabama would lose the SEC championship game to Georgia, because Auburn just dominated the line of scrimmage in this game. But Alabama found a way to win. Bryce Young came through. And yeah, anyway, Bama, of course, made the playoff and the title game. And yeah, anyway. All right. You're down to one last game. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is number 5 for me, and this one's actually like really I'm going so many different directions with this. We have the Bedlam game, which is like that's an
Yeah.
honorable mention for me. Kansas versus Texas, 57 to 56, 57 to 56 in a football game. That's old school Big 12 for you right there. Kansas won. That's still honorable mention for me. The 9 overtime game where Illinois beat Penn State 20 to 18 in 9 overtimes. Like they could have played like they never would have made it to 30 points. Like I just think that's what's so silly. Like in 9, like the team started at 25. They started at 25. How did and then you get the 2-point conversion off, and like everyone just was missing. And by the way, that was the game that I realized it was a 2-point conversion off. Like, I don't think I actually really grasped the concept. I was like, yeah, like that, it doesn't really happen. Like, what's that going to happen like 3 times? And it's never going to happen when it matters, And then like you watch and it was like, holy cow! Like neither of these teams can't score from like they have no good 2-point plays left, and somehow Illinois wins 20 to 18. Again, honorable mention for me. So number 5, my number 5 is Michigan State beating Michigan 37-33.
Yes.
I think Kenneth Walker, like this was it for me. I'm a big Michigan State guy. Like I believe in Mel Tucker. I'm a fan of his. And
sure.
Yeah, like Kenneth Walker went for 197 and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And like they had like just a really late surge in the fourth quarter to come back and take that one in East Lansing. So that's number 5 for me. I think probably the reason I had it above the honorable mentions, it was just strictly because of how much it meant. Like it took Michigan State from kind of a middle of the road team to they were playoff conversation, and I think that win got them there. Like that made them legitimate.
And they won a New Year's Six bowl game then. Like that was a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with any of your 5. This was very difficult. The last one I have is the title game, Georgia 33, Alabama 18. And this is the only one on my list that didn't come down to like the last second basically, or like a 1-score game.
Right.
But it essentially did. Like that was a back and forth game, I thought, pretty much the whole way until the pick 6 at the end. And yeah, like I just really enjoyed the title game. We've had several blowouts in recent years.
Yeah, this was not. This was close.
Our playoff games were blowouts this year, but this was a good title game.
That's right.
It was just the best defense in the country against Nick Saban, and the Heisman
Trophy one.
Yeah, like it was just a lot of fun. So I was, and again, I probably leaned a little more towards just pure entertainment.
Sure.
But that one was pure entertainment to me. All right. Any games that we should talk about that were just like the Rose Bowl and oh man, there were just so many good games this year. College football is awesome. What can we say?
Okay, October 9th. This is the one that will always get forgotten forever. Like this one didn't even really happen, but it did. It was number 3 Iowa versus number 4 Penn State.
Yes.
23 to 20, and just a slugfest. I mean, I remember being so upset when this game was over. I was so upset about this one because we were all over Penn State. Me and you both were like in our picks. We were certain that Penn State was going to win this game, and they would have. Clifford goes down, and they don't. But yeah. So that one there was like.
By the way, like people say, I've heard Iowa fans say that we don't know how the game would have gone if Clifford had stayed healthy. We know how the game would have gone if Clifford would have stayed healthy.
Yeah. It was number 3 versus number 4.
Yeah.
Like that's a big game, and it's an afterthought. Like we don't even think about it. Do you remember, not to change too many gears here, but week 1, Georgia played Clemson. That was 3 versus 5.
Yeah.
3 versus 5.
Yeah.
We don't even talk about that anymore. People forgot about that because Clemson was, not good. So like people forget that game like really happened too. So much of that stuff I think is so interesting because like the lead ups to these games, like we viewed those games is huge. Like Georgia
Yeah.
Clemson was going to be the game of the year. You couldn't convince anyone otherwise.
Right.
And like it doesn't even make the top 20, you know?
Yeah. I had it like on my final 20 just because I
Oh, did
enjoyed
you?
it. Just
Okay.
because, like, not because it was necessarily that great of a game, but because it was entertaining. And yeah, like that was maybe this year's version of two really good defenses going at it and in a
Right.
low scoring affair.
Right.
Yeah. Also, like, kind of in the same category, Alabama 31, Florida 29. Like,
Yep.
that was
Yep.
supposed to be a big deal. And then, Florida ends up firing their coach. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like that was supposed to be two top 10 teams.
Yeah.
NC State 27, Clemson 21. That was another one that was on my list. That was hard to leave off. Yeah, there was just a lot of
Oregon,
good
Ohio
games.
State. Oregon
Yes.
going to the shoe, beating Ohio State by a touchdown. That was fun. That one
Yeah.
for me probably was in my top 10. Like I
Sure.
really, really liked that game. It was just it was entertaining. It was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
that was also probably in my top 10. I think if Oregon makes the playoff, like, we might
Yeah.
even remember that a little more fondly.
That's right. Yeah. No, I would agree. I'm with you too on like the Alabama Florida game. Like these are games that like they happen so early. Like those happened in the first 3 weeks of the regular season, and you kind of forget about them. Like they were like the consequences were suffered, and so like Florida then drops and then they drop other games too, so like it doesn't get viewed as a big game anymore. But like in the moment that game was huge, and like we thought like Florida can, they're gonna be right there with Alabama. Like they can still win the East. I remember that. Like, Georgia's good, but like Florida's the class of the East. It's like they freaking lost. Like, okay, yeah, spare me. But that's it. Yeah, we can get into that later. But I think we should like make a list of these games, and that way when people get like in the real dog days, like early summer when there's just nothing really happening, you're just desperate for football. You can go back and watch. Yeah, go YouTube this stuff. Go watch like even watch like the plays only, like the 30-minute plays only.
Yes.
That you can get on YouTube. I love those.
Yep.
Like, dude, that's what gets me through the off seasons. That is what gets me through.